Okay, we're going to use 1 point perspective to draw a row of terraced houses. But first, before we do that, I want to explain two key features of a 1 point perspective drawing: vanishing point and horizon line. So first, I'm going to explain vanishing point. To understand what the vanishing point is, we're going to look at this photograph. I'm just going to highlight a couple of lines, starting off with the train track here. And you can see the train tracks that are closer to us, the gap between those lines is really big, and if the train tracks that are further away, the gap becomes really small. So here we've highlighted the power lines. The gap between the power lines that are close to us is quite large, and again, as the power lines get further and further away, the gap between the lines comes smaller. So here I've just highlighted the top of the trees and the bottom of the trees, and you can see the trees that are close to us, the gap between those lines is really big, and once again, as it gets further away, the gap between the lines becomes smaller and smaller. What you'll notice about these lines is they all meet at one single point there. That is the vanishing point, and you can think about the vanishing point as the point where the gap between the lines gets so small that it disappears. To consider what the horizon line is in 1 point perspective, we're going to use this grid. If you imagine the horizon line being here, then everything above that horizon line is where we're looking up, everything below that horizon line is where we're looking down. If I place an object on the horizon line, we can see the face of that object, but we can't see the top or the bottom of it. If I place an object above, now we can still see the face, but we can also see the bottom of it. If you think about looking up at an aeroplane, you can see the bottom of that aeroplane as well. If we place an object underneath, we can see the face, but we can also see the top. So whenever we're drawing anything in perspective, 1 point perspective, this is going to be the case. Okay, so now to get started. For those of you who have got a printer, there is a printout available to get to the next stage. So if you've got that, you can skip ahead. I'm going to quickly go over how to draw it out by hand for those who can't. So to begin with, I'm going to draw a line straight across the page, not that far from the bottom, and then across the top, I'm going to measure in 2, 5, and 8. And then on the other side, I'm going to measure in 21, 24, and 27. Then the same on that line I drew at the bottom, exactly the same measurements. I'm going to draw 2, 5, 8, 21, 24, and 27. Once I've done that, I can join those lines top to bottom. Then on the far two lines, I'm going to measure up 8 centimeters and join that up. And then on the middle of each side, I'm going to measure out 3. And then I can draw diagonals between these points. This is going to be the roofs of the houses. Then just underneath this line in the middle, I'm going to draw a dot. That's going to be my vanishing point. And then I'm going to draw a couple of dots just in diagonally from the corners of the houses. And then I can draw out slightly harder on the house itself. So I'm going to go around those. Once you're at that stage, you can just rub out the lines that are not the houses. And that gets you to the stage of the printout. Okay, so the next stage, we're going to start drawing out some lines using the vanishing point. So we're actually going to start using the 1 point perspective here. The first thing I'm going to do is to give the house some form. And I'm going to start by giving it 3 lines. One from the top to the vanishing point. One from the corner to the vanishing point. And one from the bottom to the vanishing point. Okay, then the next stage is I'm going to use the dots at the bottom, and that's going to be the pavement. So I'm going to go again back to the vanishing point, draw a line to that dot. On this side, from the vanishing point, a line to the dot, and then I'm going to draw one straight line across the bottom from those dots. Okay, so the next thing to do is to give the house an endpoint, and I'm just going to use the ruler and I'm going to make sure it's parallel with here and here when I draw these. So I need to make sure it's parallel with that. Then as well as capping off the buildings, I can also cap off the pavement at the end. So that's just a straight line going across. And then I can rub out the vanishing line points going inside here. So after rubbing out that middle section there, you can see you've roughly got 2 blocks of houses either side. But we need to make sure those houses have got windows and they've got doors. So the next thing I'm going to do is to give myself some lines to work to for the windows and the doors. So from the vanishing point, I'm going to go out near the top of the house, and then slightly further down, I'm going to use the vanishing point again. So these are going to be my upstairs windows. I'm going to do exactly the same downstairs. So I'm going to give myself a line that's the top of the windows, and then join that up with the vanishing point. From there, I can draw in a couple of those windows by doing vertical lines on the houses. So just like the gaps are larger between here and here, the windows need to get smaller and smaller as they get towards the back. So this should be the widest window, and then towards the back it should get narrower. Then exactly the same on the bottom, apart from on the bottom you can draw a door as well, which just goes all the way down to the base of the house. So draw the first one of those in. And the top of that door follows the line to the vanishing point as well. So I'm just gonna go over that. Okay, so as well as giving myself those doors and the windows, I'm going to make sure that the road is correct. I'm going to give it a line down the middle. So I'm going to draw one line just straight down, and then either side of that I'm going to do 2 little points not far from that line, and then join those up to the vanishing point as well. And then I'm going to make that a dotted line rather than a solid line, so just going to break it up. And again, these lines here should be longer than the lines as they go back, so make sure you're doing them smaller the further away they are. Okay, so I'm just going over some of these lines a bit harder just to make sure they're the final lines. Okay, so from this point I'm going to start to add in a few more extra details. I'm going to add in a little bit of thickness to the pavement. So just underneath here, I'm going to draw a line to the vanishing point again. And then I'm going to add some tiling to the roofs as well. It's really important when you do the tiling that you remember to go to the vanishing point again. So I'm going to give myself lots of lines to work with. And each line of these I need to make sure that it's always going to the vanishing point. I don't want to let my ruler slip and then to have some lines being wonky, otherwise it's not going to look great. Making sure it gets to the vanishing point again. So once you've reached this point, it's really a case of making it your own. So you're adding your own details in. You could add street lights, you could add a little car, you could add some people. But the really important thing is to make sure that you're using the vanishing point whenever you're adding something. So if it's this size here, it needs to be smaller over here if it was the same thing. So to demonstrate this, I've just drawn a little person, and this little person doesn't look too odd there, so they're just pottering about. But as they walk further down the street, they get bigger and bigger. So you need to make sure whatever you're adding is the right size for the area it is in the picture. So that's it. Add what you want to it, add some colour if you want, and that is a 1-point perspective drawing of a row of terraced houses. Have fun with it.